There are UFO hotspots all over the country. Gulf Breeze, certainly, but also here in New York State near a little town called Pine Bush. And the hotspots here near Pine Bush, according to one scientist, have a very special meaning.
Bruce Cornett is a geologist who lives near Pine Bush, New York. After numerous significant sightings of UFOs near his home, he began studying the area with an electromagnetometer.
What I found is that these magnetic anomalies are in specific patterns. And all of the UFO activity, the landings, the sightings where they are taking off and landing, when we've been able to identify specific areas, are associated with these magnetic anomalies.
Are you suggesting that nature created homing devices deep in the ground?
No, I think that it's the reverse. If we are dealing with an alien culture and they are doing something underground, they're using the natural magnetic anomalies to disguise their own magnetic signals.
Are you saying there are, or could be, aliens in the Earth?
I'm not saying it's certain. It is definitely possible, based on what I've seen.
Do you realize how that sounds?
I don't like the idea just simply because it is so outrageous. Then I would have to also add some of the photographic data that I have that shows, at least in one particular case, a UFO going up at a 7-degree dive right down into the ground, what appears to be.
Ellen Crystall has been investigating the Pine Bush flap since the early 1980s. In her book, Silent Invasion, she documents hundreds of UFO encounters in the area. Working independently, her findings seem to coincide with those of Bruce Cornett.
These ships kept coming back to the same fields night after night after night, the same places in the woods. Also, we had experiences where we clearly heard somebody drilling in the woods at night, and this is private property. It seems that there's something being constructed underground, such as an artificial installation of some type.
One of the most well-documented sightings in history occurred in Pine Bush on August 6, 1992.
We think in excess of 1,000 people may have seen 2, 3 ships or 4 ships where I took video. And all the police departments across the whole lower New York State area were simply inundated with just hundreds and hundreds of calls.
We looked over top of the trees, and there was this object there out of nowhere, this great big object. It was about 300 foot wide, the size of a football field hanging over your head, and about 300 foot off the ground.
We looked at our clocks, and we had 3 battery-running clocks, 2 in the kitchen and 1 in the living room. And for some strange reason, all 3 clocks were stopped at the same time.
Just about everyone in Pine Bush has seen a UFO. In his barbershop, Butch Hunt hears a lot of stories from eyewitnesses about strange alien encounters.
About 60% of the people around here, I think, have seen something. And some talk about it and some don't. They're just afraid to talk about it. Afraid of ridicule and intimidation. The one that we saw was over at Red Mills Bridge, and there were 6 of us in the car, but it just so nice. It just glided right over the trees, and we just got out and stood there, just gawked at it, and nobody said a word. But the whole episode was probably 30 seconds. But it was huge. It was bigger than the bridge.
UFOs are cited by all kinds of people, including the most credible professionals that you can find. In addition, when we have multiple witnesses who all tell the same story, then we can say, well, that's probably a pretty good report. If we have enough detail in a given report that we can rule out all of the normal explanations, it's not the planet Venus, it's not the aurora borealis or a meteor, it's not an aircraft that we can name, then we are talking something fairly credible.
Videotape doesn't lie. It's not a hoax.
In Brazil, a camera records 3 strange lights.
This object appeared for 1.5 hours.
In Japan, someone captures this hovering object. And in Topeka, Kansas, and Tucson, Arizona, other cameras document other unusual objects. Once these encounters would have been dismissed, but today cameras have ensured they're taken seriously.
There it goes. 1, 2, 3. Do we have a videotape rolling?
Yes.
A lot of people have home video cameras. So we see a lot of videotape taken from all over the world. And a lot of it is taken at night. And there are certain patterns that emerge.
One of these patterns is geographic. Locations where UFO encounters seem to congregate. These areas are known as hotspots, and one of these active locations is Pine Bush, New York.
There, it's coming through the trees now.
Here, near the side of a country road overlooking an ordinary field, Pine Bush residents gather almost nightly to view and videotape strange lights in the sky.
It's like you're being drawn. Something's pulling you to here.
I also feel like I'm drawn to this place. I mean, if I don't come up here, I get rather irritable.
Longtime local resident and author Ellen Crystall has documented the Pine Bush phenomenon for 10 years. In August 1992, Ellen took this home video of her UFO encounter.
How is that? For 12 minutes, I held the camera as still as I could and filmed this thing going about 1 mile an hour, 2 miles an hour.
Computer analyst Jim Dilatoso has studied this videotape. He can find no explanation, save one.
In analyzing the Ellen Crystall video, we determined that it is not night phenomena of planets or stars. It's not an aircraft. It's not a hoax. It's probably what the witness said.
Ellen Crystall's experiences inspired other people in Pine Bush to come forward. Thomas and Susan Mann started coming to the field in August 1993. A few weeks later, Thomas shot this videotape of a UFO hovering at the tree line. Ever since, the couple has returned to the field.
3 or 4 times a week?
If not more.
If not more.
Every week, all winter long. We just bundle up and go out.
Oh, I can see it with the...
Strange. Within this one field, there's some very strange things going on.
Attempting to explain these sightings, geologist Bruce Cornett surveyed the field. He discovered abnormal magnetic fluctuations.
I found areas that will be transmitting 5 to 10,000 gamma spikes every 20 to 30 seconds. And there is nothing natural about that.
Dr. Cornett believes these bizarre magnetic anomalies are somehow related to the UFO activity.
And every single one of the so-called hotspots that have been identified occurs near or over one of these magnetic anomalies.
There are areas around the world which are known as so-called UFO hotspots because of the frequency of reported sightings. Pine Bush, in upstate New York, is one of those places. That is what attracted UFO investigator Ellen Crystall. This is where she actively attempts to initiate contact with aliens. Having written a book on her experiences called Silent Invasion, she believes her 20 years of research, including over 1,000 photographs, offers evidence of the existence of extraterrestrial life.
It really takes a certain mentality to do it in a cohesive way so that you come away with some research. I mean, there's people like me trying to collect research and successfully doing it and trying to have close encounters where you can use equipment and machinery that actually works and registers.
Ellen first began searching for extraterrestrials in the countryside around Pine Bush during the early 1980s. At that time, a psychic told her that she had been cured by aliens during a severe childhood illness.
She basically did a reading with me, and she said, when you were 4, you were really sick, and she said, I see the ship above a White House, and they healed you. And I said, well, I was sick. I was sick for 8 months. I thought I was 2.
This psychic reading motivated Ellen to pursue her dream of meeting up with aliens. This is her story. She maintains that on August 7th, 1980, she had a close encounter which satisfied her curiosity, perhaps more fully than she had expected.
My own stipulation was that I would not walk in a new field that I hadn't walked in already. So I had gone up to actually the first site, which is right up here, about half a mile. And I was standing in the field and I was turning around, just watching some nebulous lights. I saw a huge a bright light go down in the trees right across the street from me. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I kind of thought they were daring me.
Ellen took the challenge. She drove from field to field, contemplating her next move. Gathering up her courage, she went back to the spot where she had first seen the mysterious lights. She says that as she aimed her flashlight up into the trees, she saw something that looked like a moth. But when she moved the light down, she saw legs. Legs that appeared to run in place.
But the thing ran across the clearing when it could have ducked into any bush. This was the other thing that puzzled me. It ran across the clearing, came to the edge of the clearing, stopped and stared at me. The alien in Pine Bush was about 3.5 feet tall. No discernible clothing, beige, very pale beige looking, very thin, large head, no hair, very big yellow eyes that wrapped around to the side, and the eyes were what caught in my flashlight.
Ellen was bewildered by an overwhelming power, which she sensed radiating from the creature.
I mean, they look, if you just look at somebody that size, you think nothing, like a child. But then you get this awesome feeling of power. And at that point, I probably decided to take off. That was probably one of the deciding factors.
Frightened and exhausted, she drove to a deserted parking lot to rest and collect her thoughts.
I just couldn't deal with all the emotion. I was so paralyzed with fear, and I remember my chest like going up and down. I mean, I was totally panic-stricken. I started to sweat.
Ellen Crystall kept a journal of this and other experiences that she included in her book. As part of her research, she has developed elaborate theories, all her own, about why these aliens have come to Earth.
I think that the aliens have a problem. I think they have a really terminal physical problem. I think the only reason that aliens would be coming here on such a massive level would be if they have a terminal physical problem, and that essentially equates to reproduction, that they may be a race on the edge of extinction.
Are Ellen Crystall's claims of extraterrestrial incursions into upstate New York to be believed? Or is she subscribing to a type of modern-day mythology? Professor of Sociology at Northwestern University, Bernard Beck, thinks this is the case.
There are some people who are saying, when the extraterrestrials come, they are so smart and so accomplished, just by virtue of the fact that they got here, that they'll bring with them all sorts of things to make our lives better. They'll take care of us. And like anything that is created by ordinary people in their masses, through culture, through talking over back fences and talking over lunch and talking over a beer at a bar, it creates a culture, expectations, and a sense of the way these things are supposed to go.
According to fellow UFO investigator Philip Imbrogno, Ellen's expectations are so intense that, combined with her apparent fascination with science fiction, her objectivity is severely compromised.
I believe that Ellen Crystall is very sincere about what she's doing. I question some of her methods of investigation and some of her conclusions as to what she is collecting. When she looks at her evidence, she says this can be nothing else but ETs. Okay? When I look at her evidence, I say, well, you've got something here. There are a lot of unexplainable sightings, but I don't think she has enough evidence to actually put a label on it to say this is an extraterrestrial spaceship.
Many of the UFO sightings in Hudson Valley occur around the Stewart International Airport near Pine Bush. Airport manager and retired air traffic controller Ken No is familiar with these claims.
People can see meteors, which are pretty spectacular sights sometimes. Most of the sightings that I've heard of are in the evening, and various airplanes have different kinds of lights, different configurations of lights, and if people aren't looking at the night sky all the time, or a great deal of the time, they may find something unusual looking.
Adding to the confusion, in the summer of 1988, during a rash of reported UFO sightings, a group of pilots decided to play a practical joke on the residents of the Hudson Valley.
They flew in an echelon formation, or if you like, a V formation, in small light aircraft, which don't make a great deal of noise, and they look pretty impressive. And so it was quite an impressive sight. And a number of people reported that as a UFO, which probably was the pilot's intention in the first place, to have some fun with folks. It caused quite a stir for a number of years.
Ken Noe and other local air traffic controllers remain skeptical of Ellen Crystall's conclusions and of her UFO video research.
I have seen some of her work, some of her photographs, and I think they're certainly questionable.
These tapes were shot near the Stewart International Airport.
Clearly looks like an airplane to me. I see flashing strobe lights as anti-collision lights and what may be 2 landing lights on the wingtips of the aircraft. Again, this clearly looks to me like a slightly out of focus video of an aircraft. I think you can clearly see this is probably a large jet aircraft. At this point on the tape, you can even hear the engines. Looks like an airplane to me.
Ellen's photographs fail to hold up under any scientific scrutiny. Another problem is that her reported sightings tend to take place when she is alone. Psychology professor Hubert Dolezal says that when Ellen's psychic told her that aliens had cured her during a childhood illness, it may have caused these delusional sightings.
I'm sure people talked. The family probably mourned, cried. She was probably told she might die, or chances are she perceived that and picked up on it. And then she's told that someone out of the ordinary, someone out of the medical community is responsible for her healing. Perhaps the most important event in her life. She has life. Psychologically, I liken this with someone who finds out somewhat later in life that he or she was adopted. And the terrific human need to make contact